We're rolling.
Doing an ABS repair today. Very common. First thing you want to do is clean your ABS if you can. Sand down as much of the paint as you can. This is the back side. This is a piece of an old bezel. You can see where the crack stops right in here. After you've cleaned it, you want to go ahead, small drill bit, and you want to dead end that crack. Crack should not travel any further once you've dead ended it. Next thing I do, take my Dremel with a small engraving tip and I make a valley down the whole length of that crack. Sometimes you can do it on both sides depending upon where the crack is, if it's accessible. This particular crack here, I'm going to use on the back side. I'm going to back it up. I'm not going to run the Dremel on the back side. I'm going to back it up with the grid work that Chris Fetters makes and sells. This is spectacular stuff. It's pretty cheap. And what I'll do is I'll back it up on the back side with this grid work here, like so. Cuts real easy with a pair of scissors. Now that I've Dremeled it, and it's ready, I'm going to run straight MEK across the length of the wound to start melting it back together. Oh, this MEK is pretty nasty stuff. You should probably wear gloves every time you use it. Make sure you're in a well ventilated area if possible. You can use a natural bristle brush. That's the best. If not, the hairs of the brush will come apart in your repair, and that's what you don't want. You don't want any foreign material in your repair at all. You want ABS and ABS only in your repair. And then I just once you get down to the end, get you a clamp down on the end. It'll hold it together. The hole that you drilled will start filling up as you start applying your MEK and your liquid MEK later. You can already tell it's starting to fill in nicely there just from the raw MEK. You can see it's coming through the crack, which is what you want, going all the way through there. On this back side, like I said, I'm going to back it up with the grid work. If you don't have the grid work and you want to back it up, you can back it up with just a straight piece of ABS. I'm not a fan of fiberglass mesh. I know a lot of people use it. It's not something that I use in my repairs. This doesn't take very long to set up and cure. Take off that clamp and you can see it's I would normally let this set up for a couple hours before I applied any more labs to it. Got a little movement still. Put that clamp back on it and let it sit for a little while. Okay, this is set up. We let it set up for probably about a half hour. As you can see, the crack, it's got a little movement. I'd like to let it set for another couple hours, get it good and hard in there. But for this video, this will be fine. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to back up the inside of that crack with this grid work. And this stuff, this is, Chris makes this. This is just ABS made into this grid work. And what I'm going to do is just basically glue it on to the back side of this crack. And just use the raw MEK. The inside of this should be cleaner than what it is. As you can see, there's a lot of dirt in there. But for the purpose of this video, this is just fine here. And put a little bit of MEK on the back side of this. And just gonna glue that on there. I'll just put a little bit on there. There's a flat side to this grid, and that's the side I like to put down. on my repair. This grid works great, especially on the window, on the bed-in window cracks. You can cut this and make gussets around those corners that are famous for cracking. You fill it in with this. Now I'll put a little coat of my Labs mixture. I start with a 50-50 mix and then thin it out from there. And I use my squeeze brush, my squeeze bottle, and just squeeze it on the brush and just brush it on. Okay. You can pour it, brush it, and just start filling it in. Do it a couple different ways on this grid work. Anyway, I start with a base of 50-50, and by the time I get done, it's a lot thinner than a 50-50. As you can tell, it's thinner than pancake batter. That's the consistency I use and like to use. And I always clean my brush in my MUK jar. And then that'll set up. Now on the front side of your crack, lots and lots and lots of thin coats over your crack. Typically, I try to do a couple of coats in the morning, and then I'll do a couple of coats in the evening. A repair like this would take me 3 or 4 days to fill in that crack completely. Then I would come over it with sandpaper, usually start with a 150 grit and end up with a 220. I know people do a lot finer grit after that, but usually 220 is where I end up. And I'll sand it down, and once you sand it, you'll see marks where you need to keep filling in. And you just use your Labs and your brush and just keep filling it in and sanding and filling and sanding. After that is when you paint. You always want to make sure that you paint over any ABS repair that you do for the UV protection. There's quite a few different paints depending upon the area, the country you live in. That's a close match to the original color. A lot of people use a shell white. I can't get that where I'm at, so I use it's called heirloom white, and it's made by Rust-Oleum, and typically I end up painting complete panels, so I don't really worry about a close color match. But anyway, that's how I do my repairs. That's all I got for now. Bye-bye.